Marathon is extremely frustrating to me. It's a game made by a studio I used to love, with a world, atmosphere, and story that hooked me from the second that I was introduced to it. But as an actual video game, it feels like it's missing something. And it's a very big something.
Like $1 trillion.
Firstly, and most importantly, this is not a review. I haven't played the launch build of Marathon, nor have I even pre-ordered it or watched any other reviews. This is just me trying to figure out why a game that I should love instead leaves me feeling frustrated and weirdly angry. This is the exact moment I was first introduced to Marathon as an IP. I was born in 2000 and had never played or even heard of the original trilogy that released in the mid-90s. I was instantly hooked on the visuals, the tone, and the overall atmosphere. It had hints of Mirror's Edge and Super Hot, two games I played to death when I was a kid, as well as Wipeout. No, not that one. I had seen some rumblings online that Bungie was disrespecting an old cult game franchise, but when I looked it up, I have to admit, all I saw was a fairly generic Doom clone with interesting lore, but not really anything else. I guess that makes me a hypocrite, considering how I feel about modern Halo. So bite me, I guess. Anyways, the thing that did give me pause was the news that this game would be a live service extraction shooter, and at that time in my life, I had played exactly 3 of those. Escape from Tarkov, Call of Duty DMZ, and Battlefield Hazard Zone. And I hated all 3 of them. But I was so intrigued by Marathon's atmosphere and the world that I was willing to hold out a little bit of hope. But as we got closer to the game's launch, the online Discord around Marathon had gone entirely off the rails.
If you're making a shooter game that's primarily made for men, then you should make sure that all of the female characters in the game are fuckable.
And another type of first-person shooter had come out, Concord. And Concord was such a colossal laughingstock that it was taken offline and tossed into the dumpster of history less than 2 weeks after its launch.
The crew is gathering. Would you like to join us for game night?
Concord became the new gold standard for how not to handle a multiplayer game. And from now on, every generic, soulless, corporate-looking live service title would be compared to it. Marathon's launch was getting closer, and the more I saw of its visuals, the more I read of its lore, the more I heard of its music, the more I fell in love with this game that I'm fully expecting to not even enjoy playing. Then something strange happened. I found an extraction shooter that I actually liked. Arc Raiders exploded onto the scene seemingly out of nowhere, and I was hesitant to give it a try, but when I did, I found myself head over heels for the cycle of meeting new players and making friends, betraying alliances, and getting betrayed myself. Maybe there really was hope that I would enjoy Marathon after all. Finally, time came around for the free access server slam. So how is Marathon?
Time to find out.
Marathon opens with this gorgeous cinematic that sets up the basic story elements. In 2472, humanity's new global leadership, the UESC, sent a colony ship called the Marathon out across the stars to establish a colony in the Tau Ceti solar system.
Infinite possibility.
A few years later, the Marathon mysteriously loses all communication with the civilizations on Earth and Mars, and no one appears to know why.
What happened?
What is the UASC doing about it?
After almost a full century, the Tau Ceti settlement sends a bizarre message back to Earth, one that the UESC seemingly tries to cover up, although it was eventually leaked anyway.
Somewhere in the heavens, they are waiting.
With this, you were told that you were a runner, a corporate mercenary operating from a detached consciousness, piloting a lab-grown biomechanical body called a shell, and you were hired to be sent to Tau Ceti and scavenge the remains of the colony in order for the founding corporations to recoup their losses and perhaps uncover just what happened there. Right out of the gate, the game is asking you to grapple with a few very heavy questions. What does it mean to let a corporation own your mind and manufacture your body? What happens to the soul after countless cycles of death and rebirth? How many cycles does it take before I stop being me? It's honestly a really great little piece of sci-fi existential horror. And once the cutscene ends, you play a brief tutorial before being acquainted with your first corporate sponsor, Oni, an AI partitioned to your psyche from the Cyber Acme Corporation. In universe, she provides your HUD and navigation systems. There's a sinister, false friendliness in the way she speaks to you.
Think of me as a friend.
It sort of reminds me of the way Walter White would speak to Jesse when he wants to manipulate him into doing Walt's dirty business.
Seeing you with Andrea and that little boy.
Oni and Syak are the first of several factions or corporate sponsors that will offer you contracts to further your standing with them. Increasing your standing gives you access to perk trees unique to each faction, as well as sponsor kits. Essentially similar to how free kits work in Ark, but the quality of gear in your sponsor kit varies depending on your standing with that specific faction. And each faction has very interesting, disquieting lore about what they produce or why they're financially invested in your runs to scavenge the ruins of a long-abandoned civilization. Narratively, this sets up these corporate groups as your personal benefactors. They fund you, they give you free equipment, and they shape how you play the game. And naturally, you'll want to pick favorites. Do you prefer Arachne because they have cooler aesthetics and lore? Or maybe Traxxas gives you weapons that you prefer in their sponsor kits? Or maybe New Caloric simply offers more fun contracts? The game wants you to grow to like these factions that you work for, which works wonderfully with the game's deeper thematic narrative. You're allowing these corporations to send you off in a cheap, disposable walking coffin, all to fulfill their own profit motives. After you're introduced to Oni and accept your first contract and sponsor kit, you'll be deployed down to Perimeter, the first map available to new players. And this is where the real meat and potatoes in our journey as a runner begins. The world you exist in is both beautiful and haunting. The structures stand out against the natural landscapes like tree frogs. Bright, neon colors signal an underlying toxicity. There's an overwhelming sense of danger, like you're constantly being watched. It feels like the Reaper is never more than a few feet away. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds about the gameplay, but it's fundamentally okay. Guns feel heavy and punchy, movement feels responsive, and combat encounters are intense and engaging, with a solid variety of elevation in the combat arenas. The NPC enemies are divided between your average headcrab / flood adjacent plague creatures and UESC security forces. The UESC bots are properly intimidating. They pack a punch in combat, they're sufficiently aggressive, and they seem to be able to emulate player behavior, including voice lines that mimic things that players might say in proximity chat. And it's not really any surprise that the gameplay feels nice. This is Bungie we're talking about. And surprisingly, the core gameplay loop directly strengthens and reinforces the thematic subtext of the game's narrative. Your endless runs start to blend together into a constant loop. Deploy, loot, complete contracts, fight the UESC and competing runners, extract, upgrade and get some lore, gear up again and repeat. The endless non-stop cycle of playing the game runs perfectly parallel to the underlying message about the cycle of life and death in this disembodied nebulous state of being. But then you have to pause and realize this loop isn't building towards anything. It can't. The structure of the game is designed to play out ad infinitum until the player count drops below Bungie's arbitrary acceptable threshold, which means the game will never explore these themes any deeper than what is readily available from the get-go, and there will never be a resolution to the actual plot. Will we ever find out what happened to the marathon? Will we ever get the option to buck the sponsors and go rogue to try to reclaim our lost selves? I suppose it's possible, but I highly doubt it, because answering these questions means the plot has to end somewhere. It has to have a quantum quantifiable conclusion. And a live service game just can't do that. I think one of my key frustrations here is that it's clear that the developers want to make you think about these deep existential themes, and they also understand how to implicate the player into that narrative on a deeply intimate level, but they have no intention of ever giving the player any sort of closure on these topics. Marathon as a game has a lot of big ideas that it wants to say, but it doesn't really have the means to say them. Now on the other side of this coin is another player-driven narrative live service game. It's even somewhat structured similarly to an extraction shooter. It's called Helldivers. But there's a very key difference here. Helldivers' thematic elements about overly zealous patriotism and propaganda lend to you wanting to play the game for a long period of time. Its satirical tone is inviting the players to get totally on board and excited about doling out managed democracy across the galaxy, fighting the Xeno hordes with religious fervor, potentially forever. Marathon, however, isn't a comedic satire. It wants to be an introspective reflection of the self. It wants to be Blade Runner, not Starship Troopers. And this is my biggest frustration with Marathon. It desperately wants to be something I don't know if it's capable of being. I would love to dive deep into this world and discover the secrets of Tau Ceti, but it all inevitably feels like hollow lip service to themes that I'll never actually get to see play out. Will Marathon be a game that endures like Arc Raiders and Helldivers? Will it crash and burn like Concord and Anthem? I can't really say for sure. I can't even decide if I personally want to spend my own money on it. But I do know that the world of Marathon deserves way more than it looks like it's going to get. If you made it all the way to the end, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me rant about Marathon. This was a very last minute video, and it's also the fastest turnaround on a video I've ever had, but I still put a lot of love into it, so I hope you all enjoyed. Transformers 2 will be coming out just as soon as it can. It's a little bit of a hassle to schedule recording sessions around 3 guys who all have full-time jobs with irregular hours, so your patience is appreciated. I have some other long-form videos planned on the horizon, but I also really want to up my output, so I'm thinking of maybe doing some smaller scale playing multiplayer and chatting shit videos like I used to, but with a little bit less editing put in so I can focus on the bigger projects. So any games that you'd like to see me play, please comment those down below. As always, be sure to like and subscribe for more and share this video with a friend. It really helps me grow the channel, and the bigger the channel gets, the more ambitious I can be with the videos. Till next time, God bless you all and stay tuned for the next one.
You are not CC0.